Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Rocket, currently broadcasting to you live from Broken Beaver's Bunker Studios, located here in the Pacific Northwest. In today's headlines, robots for military use. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I have been warning you for years and years. Why the hell do they always try to make robots that can climb stairs? It's crazy. Why? Because they want to make a robot that can come up to your front door and knock on your goddamn door. Robots for military use. You military bastards! Jesus Christ, you guys are evil.
This might sound like drug-addled bragging.
So today in the news it says that this Mr. Rubin cat that started Android, the phone, whatever, that guy is switching to a new moonshot type position at Google regarding their robotics division. Now Google has made headlines recently with the acquisitions of various companies that make these walking robots. Now, also, it's been announced by Amazon of their intention in the next 5 years to have drones be able to deliver packages to people's homes. So, I've been saying this for a long time, and it sounds like science fiction, but if you notice, every time there's a frickin' future movie these days, they got robots for cops. Have you noticed that? And have you noticed that when they do design work, when they're working on the prototypes for a robot, they're always hyper concerned about the robot being able to climb stairs. Now, why do they need a robot to climb stairs? Well, it's for emergencies and disasters. Well, I think it's so that they can get to your doorway and get in your house. It's very, very clear, the future. It's better to use a drone. You don't risk anybody. Let's talk about that too.
Well, the rabbit has landed. China has been able to put a capsule, so to speak, on the moon and discharge a little rover. And they're now on the surface of the moon as we speak. Now they put out some video footage of the supposed lander. And incidentally, after viewing it many times, in my opinion, I don't see any dust collecting on the pads.
Which was another indication of supposedly a false lunar landing.
I suggest if you're into the false lunar landing conspiracy theory, you might want to check out the footage that was released by those Chinese guys that really hate our guts. You know, they're borrowing money from us, and they're preparing to kill us.
It appears to be very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder.
To have a powerful rocket engine blast the surface of the moon.
Photo after photo reveals.
More in the news. Now, I've already done a show on Nelson Mandela, and, you know, I didn't give you a lot of substance. You probably should research it yourself, but I am seeing a disturbing trend, and that is constant talk about redistribution of equality and growing poverty. Yep. That's what our leaders are concerned about, is the inequality. Very troubling. This is communism. The world is applauding communism. Now, also in the news, North Korea. It's more and more word is coming out about these horrible slave labor death camps that have been operating for 50 years. I mean, the United States could put an end to that silliness in 10 minutes. They could just literally flatten that place and stop that shit. You know, we're worried about humanitarian crisis. We got singers, you know, we are the children, worried about starving Africans.
When you have North Koreans that when they're taken into custody, one of the ways they like to tie your hands up is they pierce the webbing of your hands with a needle and a metal line and tie it so that you can't get away. So you know they sew your hands together. That's nice. That's just a little indication of what they're going to do to you. Now, the reason why North Korea is in the news is, and I'm not even going to begin to try to sort out all these names. There's a lot of uns and juns and jongs and dongs. But apparently, Kim Jing Jong-un, the little fat fuck that's in charge over there, Dennis Rodman's buddy, he's a great guy, according to Dennis Rodman. He is. He's just a great guy. Kim had his uncle or somebody executed. Somebody big up in the government over there. Now, this has something to do with his old lady. Now, his old lady also orchestrated the massacre of Kim Jong-un's ex-girlfriend, singer, who had a #1 hit over in North Korea, the horse-faced lady. I'm not sure what that was all about. Probably was her death warrant right there. You just don't make songs called the horse-faced lady. Maybe they think you're talking about the first lady, because the only people you can talk about is the guy in charge. It's amazing. It is fucking unfathomable that in the 21st century, that is tolerated. It's the last Stalin-esque, hardcore communist country left. And China's supposed to be our buddy. This is supposed to be our friend. And it's like they've got this evil, sick, fucking psychopathic brother that lives out in a shack somewhere with a bunch of women hostage or something. And we're buddies with him, and we know about it. We're cool. We still do business with him. It doesn't matter what he's involved with. It's like a guy in the United States working at some company that makes poisonous gas. You see where I'm going with that? But that's cool. We allow North Korea to exist. It's good. It props up the military-industrial complex, and, it's part of the political structure of what's going on over in the Korean Peninsula. It's just a fucking nightmare over there. It's amazing. Now, for Americans, and speaking to Americans, we live in a protective bubble. We don't have a lot of direct violence from, say, Chinese people or from Bangladesh people. No, the violence is mostly from blacks in the United States, or crazy white liberal motherfuckers going gun crazy. Those are the places to worry. Now, as a side note, of course, it's the anniversary of the Sandy Hook catastrophe, murder, cover-up, CIA hoax.
27 Americans were murdered in yet another shooting spree. 20 of those killed were children. An enormous amount of attention is being focused on this event, even to the point of having the president make emotional speeches about it, visiting the families, and it's been the top story on the news, not just in the United States, but all over the world. Obviously, this is an enormous tragedy for the families involved. However, there's something very important that's not being said here. Why is it that the American people and the world at large isn't crying for the children killed in Gaza this past month? Why is it that the women and children being killed by Obama's ongoing drone strikes aren't being talked about in the mainstream media? Why is it that the U.S. military was able to kill over 1 million civilians in Iraq and hundreds of thousands in Afghanistan without any outrage from the Western world? How many brown-skinned people have to die in order to merit front-page news? And why is it that some on the left are politicizing it and using it to push for new gun control laws on citizens while allowing the greatest perpetrator of mass murder in our current era the freedom to kill with impunity? Why aren't we hearing calls to disarm the U.S. government? Wouldn't that be more coherent? Have you forgotten that this same government that you would have disarm the citizens is the same government that granted the military the right to imprison any civilian and execute them without trial with the NDAA? Have you forgotten that this is the same government that's been attempting to find a way to censor the internet, SOPA, PIPA? Have you forgotten that this is the same government that brutalized peaceful protesters during OWS? You want to give them more power? If all human life was measured with the same scale, there would have been calls to overthrow the U.S. regime a long time ago. If all human life was measured with the same scale, European governments would have imposed sanctions on the U.S. and cut off all financial ties. If all human life was measured on the same scale, you would have understood that you have a moral responsibility to stop funding those war crimes with your taxes. But all human life is not measured on an equal scale. This much is very clear. And until that changes, any talk of legal reforms is an exercise in absurdity.
And Obama and Michelle very solemnly lit these little candles on a shelf and stood in silence for a moment in memory of these dead character actor kids. It's horrible. I think it's horrible. I want to know what we did, what our president did as a remembrance for the SEALs that got blown up on one crappy old helicopter. I'm not sure. Did he ask for the flag to be flown at half-mast for all of our dead SEALs? No. No, he wants the flag to fly half-mast for Nelson Mandela, a communist And, I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm sure he's a great guy, but the guy's a communist. All the talk I hear and chatter that I can pick up on, there's a linguistic programming going on. Redistribution. You keep listening for that word. The catchphrases are redistribution of wealth, redistribution of education, redistribution of resources, sustainability, sustainable resources, sustainable, populations. You see where that's going? So you got sustainability, you got redistribution, and the next one's equality. All right. So it starts off, and this is how it goes, okay? First, it's like slaves' rights. There's a slaves' rights movement. Say like you're making bricks for building the pyramid, and there's like 100,000 slaves and maybe 2,000 slave masters. You rise up against the slave masters. You got your slaves' rights, And then as you develop as a society, eventually you'll have like the races' rights. Even if you're black, you still got some rights, right? Then you have your gender rights. Pretty soon it's women are equal too. Everybody's equal. Then you say children's rights. Children are even more equal. And then you have animal rights. And then you have sexuality rights. Pretty soon everyone's equal no matter what they're doing. You see where that's going? So let's say that you have animal rights, and let's say that you have people rights. Now, yesterday, I was talking with a friend of mine, super intelligent guy, and we were chatting it up, and I said to him, I asked him just a hypothetical question. Why do men and women that are, say, 40 years old, their kids are grown, they're done, why do they have sex? Really? I mean, why? And he's like, so listen, it's just something I've been working on. I'm wondering about this, okay? As a socio-dynamic, why? Not for me personally. I'm a talk show host. It's an interesting topic. If you're not going to have babies, like on a caveman level, if you're not going to have children, that's not the directive. Why do people have sex, really? Isn't it just mutual flagellation? It's just masturbate together? Is that it? And he said, well, it's probably for your health. It promotes mental health. Well, that's good. It probably does. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, shit. What was I talking about? Yeah. So, I'll have to listen to that to remember what the fuck I was talking about. Oh, Lord! Rockets tripping and stumbling over his own feet. It's a pandemonium in the newsroom.
In recent years, the conservatives have gradually come to a dim realization of the weakness in their position, of the philosophical flaws that had to be corrected. But the means by which they are attempting to correct it are worse than the original weakness. There are three interrelated arguments used by today's conservatives to justify capitalism, which can best be designated as the argument from faith, the argument from tradition, the argument from depravity. Sensing their need of a moral base, many conservatives decided to choose religion as their moral justification. They are claiming that freedom, capitalism, and America are based on faith in God. Politically, such a claim contradicts the fundamental principles of the United States. In America, religion is a private matter and must not be brought into political issues. Intellectually, to rest one's case on faith is to concede that reason is on the side of one's enemies, to concede that there are no rational arguments to support the ideas which created this country, no rational justification for freedom, justice, property, individual rights, and they can be accepted only on faith. Consider the implications of that attempt. While the communists are claiming that they are the champions of reason and science, the conservatives conceded and retreat into the realm of mysticism, into another world, surrendering this world to communism. It is the kind of victories that communist irrational ideology could